Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And we've got sad news coming out of the WWE as of earlier today. Triple H tweeted this out at 3:32 p.m. Pacific time. He said, just received a call from WWE Hall of Famer Mike Rotunda, who informed us of the tragic news that our WWE family member for life, Wyndham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt, unexpectedly passed earlier today. Our thoughts are with his family, and we ask that everyone respect their privacy at this time. This was pretty shocking stuff, Larson.
Yes, it was. It was.
Later on, a little bit later, Sean Ross Sapp tweeted out and specified that he had permission and was encouraged by the family to get the details of this correct. Evidently, Bray Wyatt had contracted a case of COVID. And that, what did you have the actual tweet in front of you?
I do.
Okay.
Sean said, I was given permission to reveal that earlier this year, Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt, got COVID that exacerbated a heart issue. There was a lot of positive progress towards a return in his recovery. Unfortunately, today he suffered a heart attack and passed away.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously pretty shocking. I mean, the man he's only 36 years old. 4 children, of course, his wife JoJo, and obviously goes without saying, probably one of the, if not the most creative minds in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
His presence is always eagerly anticipated when he's not around, just to see what setup we're gonna get next. And obviously, throughout the years, WWE had been sort of up and down in terms of their effectiveness at using his style of storytelling. But the one thing that can't be disputed is that he's always somebody who people talk about and people pay attention to. He had a magnetism that was almost unmatched, and a creativity and desire seemingly to move the creative aspect of pro wrestling into places it had never been before. And in terms of the world of wrestling, I think that ultimately will end up being his probably his legacy.
Yeah, he definitely seemed like he was trying to transcend the typical tropes of professional wrestling with the stories he was telling.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like the Firefly Funhouse match, it worked splendidly.
Yeah.
I mean, he pretty much, with John Cena, did an art film about wrestling tropes and the history of wrestling at WrestleMania, and was given the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
But he was constantly pushing the envelope in terms of, all right, how can I take story elements, which very influence. The Fiend was very much inspired by horror films, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And try to find ways to tell these stories, which are typically told in movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
Within the realm of professional wrestling. And it would have been interesting to have seen his vision for pro wrestling storytelling presented, unfettered,
without compromise.
without compromise from, whether Vince or Triple H, whatever the case may be. Because I remember Triple H saying when there was talk of potentially bringing him back, that Bray was just like a whirlwind of creativity.
Yeah.
And just had so many ideas.
Yeah.
And it really would have been interesting to see what that vision would have looked like.
Absolutely. Some absolutely heartbreaking responses on social media as well. Alexa Bliss Instagrammed out, I believe, a picture of her with Bray in full burnt Fiend costume, and had some nice words for him there. I haven't seen if Braun Strowman has said anything. They're obviously they're very close.
Yeah. Amanda Huber, John Huber's wife, tweeted out saying that she was devastated. This is an outpouring of support for JoJo and Wyndham's family. People sharing memories. It's obvious that he left a profound impact on a lot of people. Big E. It spoke about that Wyndham was the first person when he came to NXT to really help him. this enormous outpouring of love and support for JoJo and the family and the Rotunda family as a whole. And it's a huge loss for the wrestling world, a massive loss.
It is. It is difficult to fully comprehend what we're not going to get now as fans of pro wrestling. And of course, the number one priority clearly is the man has 4 children and a wife, and that's and an entire family, and that's horrible from our perspective as people who are not in that, who are not privy to his family life. You know, to be so in the whole QR code campaign that they ran upon the last time he was going to make his return was so inventive, and it was so exciting. And yes, you know, they ended up turning, you know, his feud with LA Knight into a promotional match, and et cetera, which even as a promotional match, Bray Wyatt managed to turn it into visually something that was interesting. And it gave us some of the most entertaining back and forths with LA Knight that put kind of LA Knight on the map. And I think he's even said that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, from what we understand, there is still a movie out there that he had sort of spearheaded, from what I understand. But from a fan's perspective, what we're going to miss out on is what you had said earlier, Bray uncompromised. And if we were ever going to get that, and regardless of how it was going to play out, he always piqued the curiosity of the entire wrestling world. I mean, nobody, you could debate about how well the creative was after, you know, a couple of promos. Okay, where is this going? But the whole lead, and then the return, and the amazing entrance with everybody just enraptured by, you know, his new theme and what it all meant and what he was going to do. Nobody was a showman like him.
Nope.
I mean, to capture the imagination and to understand that this is maybe where wrestling, that level of sophistication in presentation is where wrestling should aspire to be.
Yes.
In 2023, you know, we're many of the tropes from the 70s and 80s, especially, and 90s are still at play today. Well, this guy was showing us what it all should aspire to be, you know, in 2023. If you have young, fresh minds trying to push the envelope, trying to move it forward, and the wrestling industry is at a huge loss. Because it's not gonna have somebody continually trying to push it. I mean, he has probably inspired tons of wrestlers, you know, over the next 2 decades or so. People coming up now who saw the QR code stuff or the, you know, the Eater of World stuff or the Fiend stuff or whatever, the Firefly Funhouse stuff, and are like, hey, I want to push wrestling like that. I want to see where else we can take it, and that's a huge loss for not just what we're watching now, but the future of pro wrestling.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anybody in the world of professional wrestling right now who understood and appreciated the importance of presentation like Bray Wyatt did, like Wyndham did.
Yeah.
Across the various iterations of the Bray Wyatt character, you could tell that he put a lot of emphasis and a lot of care and a lot of thought into how the character was presented.
Yeah.
You know, when he first debuted, the rocking chair, the lantern, the spotlight, you know, the Eater of the Worlds thing, ominous lighting, still with the lantern. And the Fiend stuff, obviously, the Firefly Funhouse, taking the idea of like a 60s children's television show and fill it with puppets that were metaphors for various aspects of himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's really forward-thinking stuff in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Where most of the stories are, I don't like you, let's fight. You know, to try to imbue wrestling storytelling with so much more depth and complexity and meaning.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a major loss in that regard for us as viewers of WWE and wrestling as a whole. But I think what he has done, the work he has left behind, is going to leave a pretty significant impact on everybody who's watched it, and it's going to be interesting to see who he has influenced in the years to come in terms of pushing presentation, how presentation relates to character.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah. So Braun Strowman did Instagram out a post about 3 hours ago from when we're filming this. He says, I really don't even know how or where to start. This is just what I can muster up right now. 8 years ago today, I joined you as your black sheep. If I knew only in eight short years later, I would have to say goodbye. I sure as hell wouldn't have taken so much for granted. You were my best friend, my mentor, my big little brother, my brother of destruction. You were there for all my highs and lows as I was for yours. You taught me so many things in the business that we shared and loved, and you taught me so much in life. You truly made me a better person. I was so honored the day I found out you were having Nash Boy and you asked me to be his godfather. Wyndham, you were one of a kind with a great mind and even better soul. The world lost such an amazing man. My heart is with the Rotunda family. JoJo and all the babies know I love you all so much. I'll see you down the road, my friend. Slap Brody on the ass for me when you see him. I know this isn't bye forever. I love you, Hoot. Yeah, I mean, boy, this is a tough one to swallow. It really is.
Yeah,
and it's fairly shocking, and yeah, the world of wrestling is gonna miss Wyndham Rotunda,
definitely,
greatly. So, anyways, maybe drop some of your favorite memories of Bray Wyatt in the comments below, and thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you around.
Goodbye.